Yo, what's going on, guys? In today's video, we got a little story time for you. I want to talk about a time when I was on the 2K content creator team and Randy Pitchford responded to one of my tweets talking about what Borderlands 3 succeeded and failed at, and later on, 2K Games tried to censor my opinion. So it all started when Killer6 was correcting people on Twitter, as he always does about BL3. Listing out a bunch of base game weapons that work just fine at endgame, and there's no power creep. And while this is true, a lot of those guns are good at endgame and they are part of the base game, the game is not just power crept by DLC, which I did make a video on, go check that out. But the game is also power crept by the Mayhem 2.0 system. Now, I decided to respond to this, and I said, to be fair, the game is power crept just because of the endgame. Take the Hellshock you just mentioned, and if you find it during a playthrough, it's going to last you 20 levels, which is way too powerful. And it's because of the bombshell they dropped with Mayhem 2.0. The game is fun as hell, don't get me wrong, but it's band-aid after band-aid and nowhere near perfection. What BL3 does well is the gameplay, lore, story missions, vastness, and depth, especially the looting system, and much more. Where it fails is balance, endgame and DLCs, mayhem, etc. And I guess even though my tweet was basically me just listing pros and cons of BL3, which I felt was a very fair assessment, Randy Pitchford was magnetically attracted by the word fail. And he responded to my tweet asking me how many hours I had in BL3, which I responded with over 3,000. Now, 3,000 hours in a game seems like a lot, right? But keep in mind this was about a year and 9 months into the game's life cycle. I'm a YouTuber with about 400 videos on my channel, most of them being BL3, and I also streamed to 150 to 250 people nearly daily. So if we were to take a 40-hour work week, multiply it by 52 weeks, that'll be 2,000 hours in a year. And if we multiply this by 1.75 for a year and 9 months, that's over 3,000 hours. So while yeah, 3,000 hours is a lot to get out of a game, you gotta remember I was doing this for a living. This was my full-time job, and I was basically working 40-hour work weeks. And given that I have a community to play my game with, I can be way more creative and find a lot more stuff to do in the game than your average solo player. But you know, good old Randy Pitchford used this as a gotcha moment. Gotcha, bitch! Basically saying, that's incredible. I feel like Borderlands is like the Opportunity Mars rover, which was only designed to operate for 91 souls on Mars, but it ended up running for over 5,100 souls. When the Opportunity rover eventually failed, it had far outperformed its design and extremely over-delivered on value. It feels to me, even using the word fail in this context is reductive of the incredible achievement of the designers and engineers. And later on saying, Borderlands is made and sold as a premium campaign game. That there is value for people past 100 hours of play is an achievement. When many exceed 1,000 hours boggles the mind. It makes us more and more want to think about the game more as a hobby. Future designs will reflect. And I gotta say, this 100 hours of play tweet aged really well because I dropped Wonderlands the moment that first DLC came out. And future designs did not reflect of his goal of exceeding 1,000 hours. Now, I hate these kind of replies because he's just completely glossing over the fact that the game has things inside of it that a large portion of the player base consider to be failures. The mayhem system, the power creep issues, the fact that there's no raid bosses in the DLCs. I already said it all in the tweet that I read you guys. So I respond by saying, absolutely, I criticize the game hard, but the things it does right is the most important. Depth and vastness of the game, lore and loot systems, you guys created an entire world. But there's a fair amount of criticism. The road to success is paved by failures and lessons to learn. Basically, you know, trying to get back on track to my original point. You know, I really dislike when people reply like he did to me, because it's not a conversation anymore. It's like two people talking at each other instead of talking together. And a CEO addressing his consumers like this really shows a lack of awareness and also shows the downhill trajectory if we consider Tiny Penis Wonderlands and New Tales from the Borderlands. And the conversation pretty much ended there because he didn't reply to me after that. Anyways, later on that night or the next day or whatever it was, given that I'm on the content creator team, a 2K rep decides to DM me telling me, hey Thick, thinking about your conversation on Twitter earlier, I'm hoping to add context that folks on this side truly care about your feedback. It's a big part of why you're on the team. Using the word fail, and I totally get where you're coming from, can come across as absolute and binary. rebalance endgame and DLCs and mayhem. I absolutely don't want you to say anything you don't believe. If, and please you tell me, there's room for nuance here to follow up with something like these things are areas you'd like to see improved on, it could really be meaningful. Like with the folks on our Zoom calls, think something like that will go a long way. And I responded by saying, yeah, I'm looking to post a video the next few days about it actually. At the end of the day, I understand there are differences of opinion, but no one should take my critique or review as slander or take it personally. What I was talking about was also what I've been talking about on my channel for a very long time, and long-term issues people have had with BL3 that have never been resolved. And I linked a video where I talked about a lot of this stuff on my channel throughout the years, and the video I linked is really old. Basically, when Mayhem 2.0 launched, the health pools were bloated like crazy, and I talk about that in this video, saying that the health pools really shouldn't be that big, and the power crept weapons, like the yellow cake, the damage of it should be reduced equally with the Mayhem levels so that those new weapons can still feel powerful. But if we bring both of those things down equally, then all the old weapons won't be power crept anymore. And you can see with the buffing spree that they went on base game weapons, what I was talking about with the Hellshock pistol, finding it early on in the base game, won't carry you for 20 freaking levels, and that's how power creep has affected the game. And then I go on to say, I posted that video a long time ago, and I think it touches on most of the points, but I'm posting a new video soonish that will be more clear. I can also write stuff up as I have in the past if that helps. My overall thing I believe is that Borderlands is successful through failures, because what Gearbox does is a willingness to try anything. Meaning that inevitably a lot of players hate on certain things they don't like. Like BL3 has gotten mixed reviews since launch with the story, Ava, etc. Now, I have two problems with this interaction. First being that I left a very fair critique, and I was very respectful with the way I put things. The road to success is paved by failures is actually a life motto that has been written about many times. Go look it up. You know, many people are afraid of failure. Personally, I have struggled heavily with a fear of failure in my past, and eventually I got over it. There was like a time in my life where it clicked for me, and I stopped being afraid of failure. And in fact, soon after I got over my fear of failure, I leaned into my failures, and I used them as stepping stones, and I actually became a YouTuber shortly after this. So from my perspective, failure is a very positive and human part of life. None of us are perfect, but Randy Pitchford, the CEO of Gearbox, thinks everything his company pisses out is gold, instead of admitting that sometimes they piss out piss. Now, my second problem with this is that a 2K representative is trying to censor my words, telling me not to use the word fail as it comes across as binary and absolute, when in fact, I later on elaborated on my thoughts on failure, and that failure is the path to success. If you accept that sometimes not everything you piss out is gold, and actually admit some of your flaws in your own life and the work you put out into the world, then you can improve upon them and create something better. And this is why I talk about nowadays when I say Gearbox doesn't care about the art they craft. They don't want to pave the way for other looter shooters to follow in their footsteps. They only care about the money they can make off the Borderlands IP. But the issue with that mindset is that if they were to instead accept their failures and admit them and improve upon them, the money will follow. Because this would strengthen their future content. They would make better games if they actually took the time to deliver quality, and then money will inevitably follow. But instead, as we've seen with Tiny Penis Wonderlands, they want to sell $ per minute DLCs and, you know, put their subpar millennial writing squad on new tales from the Borderlands. And I want you to take note here that when Epic NNG and Killer 6, people like that talk about respect and giving criticism in a fair way, they're not actually talking about respect. They're talking about being shilling yes men. Because I was very respectful in all of my interactions. And on top of that, I feel I was very insightful, sharing wisdoms in my own life that I've learned along my journey. But instead of taking that nuance and taking that insight, they single out one word that they deem as negative. And I assume they consider that to be defamatory, because otherwise, why would Randy Pitchford put fail in quotes twice and see it as an insult to use that for their grand old Mars rover that lasted way longer than they thought it would, and a 2K rep would contact me over this tweet, when in reality, I'm just listing out some pros and cons of a video game. So that's it for story time. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and go follow me on Twitter at thickfillet_ to see some wisecracking shit posts from me. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out.